Google relevance scores and keyword scores. So if you don't have the landing pages optimized properly, you will lose to an advertiser that has a landing page made for that specific keyword. So especially if you plan to scale and take that keyword for yourself, you have to have a dedicated team ready to build out landing pages and clones and then add the keywords until you reach the relevance score that you're happy with.
Hey, Guy Powell here, and welcome to the next episode of the Backstory on Marketing and AI. And of course, if you haven't already done so, please visit prorelevant.com and make sure you sign up for all of these episodes and podcasts. And as you know, I am the author of the upcoming book, The AI Marketing Machine, and stay tuned because we're about to start to get some of the book out the door. And, stay tuned. Go to Marketing Machine prorelevant.com and you'll find out more information about the book, and then monitor that and sign up for the newsletter and you'll see more coming out. Today I'm interviewing Ivan Yanku. He is the CEO of Digital Rocket Ads. And before we get started, let me tell you a little bit about him. Ivan is the CEO of Digital Rocket Ads, and that is a performance-driven advertising agency. His team of 20 plus experts has managed over $80 million across Meta and Google, generating 250,000 qualified leads and even more than $250 million in client revenue. So he's been featured in Forbes, and he's the creator of No BS Advertising. And Ivan helps founders eliminate waste, fix fundamentals, and scale with confidence. That is so critical for any business, whether you're small, medium, or large. Ivan, welcome. So good to have you today.
Before we go any further, a quick pause. This is important. Your sales force is one of the most expensive investments in your company. The real question isn't who's likely to buy someday. It's who should be called right now to create the most value. Traditional propensity models tell you who might convert. Our prescriptive modeling, called COPA, tells you who will convert because you called them. If you manage a large sales organization and want higher conversion, bigger deals, and better use of every rep hour, let's talk. If you want your sales team focused on the calls that matter most, visit prescriptivemodeling.prorelevant.com and set up a short strategy session.
Thank you very much, Guy.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit more about your backstory on AI and marketing. How did you get involved in this really cool stuff?
So way back when I was like 17, I started doing a bit of fitness, started doing coaching, and then when I was like 18, 19, I started like trying to grow that business. So I hired a local agency to help me out, and just the whole experience was catastrophic. So since that, I kind of figured out that I can do everything myself, started doing it for myself, and was quite successful as basically a kid. So the moment I decided that I don't want to do the fitness stuff anymore, I just decided to go fully into advertisement, started working as a freelancer on Upwork since I was like 20, 21. And since then, like I started an agency and it's been 10 years since then.
Yeah, fantastic. So that agency is Digital Rocket Ads. So,
Yep.
when you got started, what was kind of the one problem that you really found that you could solve and really help your clients with?
Well, it's usually not just one problem. There's often like a problem keeping the business from growing and scaling that could be critical, but often it's quite a lot of small, what we call profit leaks. So if your website's slow, if your checkout is bad, if you have limited options, if you miss critical information, all of those things are going to have some attrition towards the potential buyer. So maybe not all of them are going to get stopped by the lack of those elements, but a percentage of them will. So we as a business look at everything in optimization iterations. Like if we optimize everything by 1%, it will stack up if we manage to optimize it throughout the whole funnel. So when we started running everything, we were just a Facebook ads agency. And we did notice a big issue where sometimes either Google or email would pick up a lot of the conversions. So, for example, people when they see a Facebook ad, they would go Google or they sign up to get a discount, and then they get converted by somebody else. So that was one of the issues we had because we often got like leached out by other channels that we didn't provide. But then as with time, it really depended if the business was developed enough, if the website was good enough, if we could scale it or not. And then you can imagine a lot of those web dev agencies are just like guys building websites. They really don't know what makes the user buy or not because they're not really the ones responsible for making it actually grow and scale. So for an agency to not be able to control the website and be able to optimize and fix issues really fast, it's going to cause a really big lag in between solving solutions, making new tests, and just growing the business. So that's why I decided to just build everything in-house and have it all work as one single seamless motion.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And, when you talk about profit leakage and the core of everything done right, the foundation, I guess would be the right term. So, what are some of the common profit leakages that you've found in businesses that you've worked with?
So the current thing that I mostly see is mobile optimization. As things move, the percentage of people coming as mobile users is growing up day by day. Often enough, we see 80% plus come from mobile, but then when we talk to the CEOs, they all open up the laptops. And it's just because it's the different generations. So mostly the users are using mobile phones when they're moving around and they're not really using their desktops that much. So that's why they don't get hit and move from there. But the issue is that the CEO they just use their laptops to check if the website works. So when you run ads, the mobile traffic is not optimized. So we often see cart issues, loading issues, a lot of different problems can appear on mobile that don't show up on desktop. As well as we even had issues with companies that like it looked like it worked well, but then when you install heat maps, you uncover that some of the things only appear when you're logged out of the admin panel. So having heat maps is one of the only ways to actually make sure that you're not gonna go through a lot of like problems with unaware.
Yeah, yeah. So, just curious, on the one hand, I don't know, the younger generations are definitely, I don't know, like you said, maybe 80% mobile and not so much on their laptops. But the decision maker are the old guys, the old men and women, and they're on their laptops or they're, on their desktops or whatever. So, how do you balance those two things?
Even that is skewed towards mobile. The main thing is that most advertisers don't think about the users. So we have companies that work with taxes and pensions and different paperworks and even people. Old folks' homes and stuff like that. So in those situations, everybody just makes an image and that's it. But they don't really take into account that poor eyesight of the user you're targeting. So we, in most cases, what we first do is just triple the font size on the ads, on the emails, on the website, because that's the user that, and you can imagine, we try to test if the average user that's over 50, that's kind of wearing glasses, could read it so what without glasses. So if you can figure a balance for that, you will have a much better chance because a lot of advertisers are testing really good ideas, but they're not taking into account that the person cannot see them.
Yeah, yeah, and I hate to say it, I'm one of those. I'm the old guy, I guess, and and I love using the phone, but sometimes, it's incredible how small a font it gets, and you just gotta, you gotta try and expand it, and sometimes that doesn't work, and then at some point you just kind of give up. It amazes me how small the font can be on some things.
Exactly, and you can imagine advertisers are spending a lot of money and making conclusion based on if you like the ad or not while you couldn't see it.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So now you started with Meta, it sounds like, and it sounds like there's some, interesting challenges there in terms of exactly how you set it up to really get the best return on advertising spend. Tell us a little bit more about that can help the advertisers.
So it really depends on two things. If your customer is problem aware or not. So if they're not problem aware, meaning they're not going to go to Google their problem, or they're not going to really know that your product exists, you will go to Meta mostly. And then Meta is going to be an angle for you where you can grow, but you also have to have Google cover because most people are going to go and Google you, search for your reviews and stuff like that. While at the same time, there are a lot of different issues when running PPC campaigns. So sometimes you have supplements or you have specific benefits that you want to discuss, but the platforms by default prohibit you from discussing them. So any type of medical aid, health aid, benefit, whatever could be shut down. And that would then cause you to have an issue because you might have even a patent or FDA approval, but that's not relevant to Meta. They just don't care. So then having a really good system to send out emails and actually build out the touch points and say your story and say it as you want, where you actually have control compared to the ads platforms, is going to be quite important. But then there's another side to everything where, depending, for example, Google, you have Google relevance scores and keyword scores. So if you don't have the landing pages optimized properly, you will lose to an advertiser that has a landing page made for that specific keyword. So especially if you plan to scale and take that keyword for yourself, you have to have a dedicated team ready to build out landing pages and clones and then add the keywords until you reach the relevance score that you're happy with. So it's all connected. It's not just the algorithms. The algorithms play a role, but it's the users and the algorithms. They have to be aligned perfectly in order for it to be able to scale properly and stably.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And and I've seen that too, where you with some of our clients where there's definitely things that are just mismatched. So how did so there's kind of the before AI and then the after AI. So how has AI kind of influenced and improved what you've been doing? Oh yeah, absolutely. So we've been kind of talking in generalities, certainly really good information, but now let's look at it before AI and after AI. What has changed significantly in the area of meta and even generally where these leakages were occurring?
So we have a big shift from everything being done manually, where you as the advertiser have to manage the product, the audience, and the creative, where now the algorithms are taking over matching the ads and the audiences, and you're more figured towards just making really good creatives. While at the same time, you have like PMAX campaigns and Meta Andromeda coming out, where basically what we had to do like 5 by 5 tests, now you do 50 by 50 or like 50 by 5, let's say like that better. So meaning that now we have basically 10 times the volume of creative tests and the algorithm is much better at figuring it out. So it has never been a better time to scale a business. And I kind of think we're kind of reaching the zenith of social media with the AIs, and it's gonna be like what we had is, let's say, the 80s with TV, like Mad Men, stuff like that. So that's kind of where I think we're getting at with AI. But the downside to all of this is that as the platforms become more mainstream for advertisers, the small guys that don't have the budget are gonna be how like we feel now towards TV ads, like insanely expensive. So basically, the volume of tests is gonna cause a lot of companies to spend a lot more money than before, and they will get more results, but overall the value and the cost per view is going to go up.
Quick pause. This is important for any marketing leader. Marketing must continuously prove its value or the budgets dry up. Marketing mix models provide that proof in a way finance and leadership can believe. And we at ProRelevant help teams answer critical questions. Which campaigns actually worked? Which channels really moved the needle? And where should the next dollar go? With over 20 years of experience across complex marketing environments, we know how to deliver clarity, not guesswork. To learn more, go to mmm.prorelevant.com and set up a short strategy session. And now, back to the podcast.
Yeah, yeah, no, that makes sense, and especially when you're trying to test creative, I like your example of a 5 by 5 versus a 5 by 50 or whatever that is. The ability to test those different creatives makes a lot of sense. So now, tell us about what happened with iOS 14.5, and then tell us about how you think about clean, setting up really good tracking and attribution, especially now, post the iOS 14.5.
My opinion of the iOS 14.5 is that it was Apple's move towards seeing if they can better monetize the data that they send towards their companies. So what they did is they stopped sending the information from the app, so Meta couldn't actually figure out if you bought something after you clicked on an ad. So you can imagine all of a sudden you as an advertiser when the iOS thing happened, and if anyone clicked on Ask App Not to Track, all of a sudden you had a conversion, but you just had a click and a conversion, and you couldn't figure out like what happened in between. Couldn't see any add to carts, and there are some people still struggling to set up what we call CAPI or server-side tracking. So if you don't have that set up, you're going to have a lot of data just being dropped, and it's basically the server-side tracking is you setting up a secondary relay where your backend of your website sends the data back to the app, circumventing the Apple situation. So that's a solution that has been really like now even easily available for people, but there are some businesses that are not aware of that. Now, there are additional issues where the amount of data verification or validation between Meta and what they get from these servers has corruption in it. So like, let's say that about 70 to 80% of the data you send Meta has good match rate. If you didn't go through the initial process and you haven't done, it's going to be between like 4 to 6. The average user has like 6 to 7, let's say. The main problem with that is that the lower your rate with that is the more data will be dropped, causing all of your campaigns to take longer time and more money to optimize. So there are companies battling that by buying data, and they're called stave.io and blotout.io. So what advertisers mostly are now doing is adding that to their data feed, and basically that enables you to get a higher match rate. So if Meta doesn't manage to match everybody, maybe they match some of them, and because that match rate goes up, your campaigns start optimizing faster. So that's basically the gist of it, how you fight it and how you grow beyond it.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see. It's kind of like an arms race, Apple does
Always.
something and then Google does something and then the advertisers do something and then Apple comes back and it's just fascinating to watch from the outside. And so what's AI doing there? Is AI then making that process easier or how does that work?
Well, I don't know to what extent I would say that AI is playing a direct role in that. I would say that AI is playing a role in everything around it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, fantastic. So, now tell us about, obviously you can't optimize just Meta or you can't optimize just Google in a vacuum. You got to really look at a holistic approach, and there's certainly a lot of components to that. Not only your advertising in the different channels, but also email and other things, maybe, and your CRM and stuff like that. So tell us about how that, when they all work together, how that can really drive the profitability for your clients.
So there's a lot of different examples, but the main thing is that the average user is not going to be what we would love them to be, like a fast converting early adopter. The average user went through a lot of different purchases. Some of them are bad, so they do have some bad experiences they're thinking about when making decision to buy. So often we will see that more and more people are researching your product and reviews and, for example, refund and shipping policies before they commit to buying. So things like that were quite a big issue for a lot of companies because they really didn't think about everything at the time. So now they spent like 10 years working, but they didn't collect a single testimonial. And so that's one of the problems. So a lot of business owners think that they can just go and write whatever testimonial, but like the average user knows that you can fake those. So now if you don't have it either in video or in third-party review mode, so like some were in Trustpilot, TripAdvisor, G2, Google reviews, whatever, but it needs to be verified by a third party. Only those kind of move the needle to the buyer.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. And I call those marketing reviews. Those are those are reviews written by the marketer. And I hate to say it, one time I was in a presentation by a professor, and he was going through, early on in social media, and there was this, and he's reviewing this one review that was written, and he's saying, "Man, and look at this! It's got all the product features in there, and how the user loves them, and blah blah blah." Perfectly written. And, I had to raise my hand and ruin his day. And I said, that's written by a marketer. That is not a review written by somebody. And, one thing quite often you'll find is, and marketers, like, maybe they have to learn this, is that people that are reviewing things, they put in, they misspell things, they don't have good grammar, they leave off punctuation. So it's almost like you have to put it through some kind of a demarketingizer to get rid of all that marketing speak. So it speaks a little bit better as if it's more real.
Yeah, and I saw a lot of advertisers understand that people are gonna catch on to the fact that people leaving reviews for themselves or as clients. So I even saw people leaving one-star reviews as positive reviews. So like a lot of people, what they do first is go to reviews and then click to see all of the one stars. So like people even dare leave a one-star review that's positive when you read it.
Yeah, 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 exactly, exactly. So, looking ahead into the future, what do you see for the rest of 26 and certainly 2027 as to really the tools that are going to help marketers? I've been reading about things like Wicked Reports and Blot Out. Tell us a little bit more about what you see those doing.
So wiki reports and blowout are a really good combination because then you get a really good understanding of what is the attribution channel and how many different touch points you have. The main thing for the market that wiki reports figured out is that they figured out cross device or cross platform tracking, meaning that if you have a desktop and you click to a mobile or vice versa, you won't break the tracking chain, while everybody else I think didn't solve that. Now, if somebody else did also solve that, sorry about that, my bad. But mainly, that's one of the biggest advantages they have on the market. Now, the biggest downside to Wiki reports is that it is a bit complex. They have a lot of different KPIs, so you actually need to prepare and figure out what you're going to do with it and set up loadout so you have more data as much as possible. If Blotout is expensive, Stape is like $10 compared to Blotout 60. So, but in both cases, you really need to make sure that your data is good and then add something like Wicked. Most of the time, I see businesses, as I state, like having an issue tracking what is actually growing their business and what's not. So often, Meta does get under attributed because Google and email leach and take out a lot of the conversions. But at the same time, there is a lot of potential for them to then understand like how many touch points somebody needs. If they could, for example, send out more emails, would that resonate with more sales or not? So yeah, it's gonna give them clarity, but it is kind of hard to give an exact example without a niche or at least an example of a business.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Well, I'd love to keep going, but there's only I don't want to go on forever here, but I do want to ask you one last question. And I ask everybody this because I think it's really critical, and that is, what advice would you give an up and coming new marketer, that wants to get into marketing when they're, trying to basically compete against AI?
So AI is decent and it will enable them to kind of skip the junior phase with if they learn how to prompt. But the main thing that I see everybody struggling with is just bias towards just developing the messages. So often enough marketers have issues internalizing their messages instead of externalizing, meaning that what is the product mean to the customer or not what is the product towards like what I see it as. So from my perspective, like to run like an exercise like who cares, and if like when my team writes an ad or a landing page or an email, I just ask for like about a specific part of text and just ask who cares, and if they cannot answer the who cares in half a second, it's wrong. It's not good. It takes up space, and every single letter that it doesn't move the needle is just gonna cause noise, meaning that the user on the other side is gonna read even less. So if you don't have anything smart to say, don't write gibberish because then nobody's gonna read it. And it's best you just always ask who cares, because if you cannot exactly and understand what the person on the other side needs to understand and see and how they're gonna make the decision, you're not going to be able to then answer who cares. And often I see business owners just being kind of stuck in how they see the product and not how their users see the product. So combining the data with action is going to be something that I'm not sure how well the AI is going to use. It is going to be better again than juniors, but a senior's gonna have a good time with AI, a junior's gonna mess up somewhere in the middle, you know. So it again, it's a tool that makes you better as an individual user. Often it can take out a lot of the work, but only if you have the hands-on experience from prior. So to me, using AI is a double-edged sword. If you don't have a way of learning how things work, you're not going to be able to speed up everything. Like if you don't know how to use a shovel, you're going to use a bulldozer to make a lot of damage.
Yeah, exactly. How true, how true. And that definitely makes a lot of sense. Well, Ivan, thank you so much, and really appreciate your insights. It really makes a lot of sense, and you certainly, know how to get from the weeds all the way up to what really matters for not only for the customer, but then for the business itself and the brand itself. So, where can people learn more about you and your company?
If you want to book a call with us, you can check out digitalrocketads.com, and there you have a link to book a call with me where we can check out everything from your website to your ads. I usually like to do a deep dive into the business like holistically. So if you think that you have an issue with managing either like if you have an issue managing multiple different agencies, or you're just thinking that there's something left in between those agencies not being managed properly and there's like friction between, you can contact us and we can then map it out.
Yeah, fantastic. So that was digitalrocketads.com, digitalrocketads.com. Well, listen, Ivan, really appreciate it. Thank you again. And for the audience, definitely stay tuned for many other videos in this series of the backstory on marketing and AI. And like I said, please visit marketing.prorelevant.com and find out more about my upcoming book, The AI Marketing Machine. Ivan, again, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Guy.
Absolutely.